Jason,
Hello.
are you ready for this?
I think I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, good, because I'm ready as well, and I don't know if Chad is ready. Chad, are you ready? I don't know. Doesn't seem like you're ready yet. Okay, all right. We'll show this handsome man. Here we go. We'll show this handsome man. Shabam! Oh, there we are.
Dang, look at that.
There it is. Hey, everybody,
Nice.
give a warm welcome to our dear friend Jason Yadlovsky. Hey,
What's
man.
going on, everybody? It's great to be here. Good to see you all.
Yeah, it's good to see you, man. Thank you so much for doing this and hanging out with us today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Always love jumping on and chatting with you and everybody else out there. It's always great to get on here. Love doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh man, it looks like we got some beginners in chat of DaVinci Resolve. That's pretty cool.
Nice.
For people who might not know, Jason is one of my favorite YouTube channels, or he has one of my favorite YouTube channels. He's a person with a channel, okay? We're people.
I do have a channel. I'm really
But does a lot of audio focused content, stuff with Fairlight, and is just, I know that your channel is a resource for a lot of people who watch my channel. Anything with Fairlight, I'm usually sending them to your videos, and if I'm stuck,
Awesome.
I'm usually finding one of your videos to help me with Fairlight stuff. But yeah, so for anybody who's new here, Jason is a audio beast, but that's not all you do, isn't that right, Jason?
Yeah, no, a lot of audio stuff. I mean, I have a strong interest in that, but I do make stuff just about all kinds of things in Resolve, really kind of geared towards beginners, and I just try to take the hard stuff and make it a little bit easier because, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when I watch, if somebody's, going through nitty gritty stuff and it's complicated, I'm like, I can't follow, I don't know what's going on, so I try to just make it simple, and even with audio stuff, just try and make it simple. Because it doesn't have to be rocket science, right? Anybody can do this. All you guys can do this.
Yeah.
So we keep it simple and, try to just get you the basics and what you need to know to, be able to make some cool vids.
Yeah, man.
YouTube,
Well, that's one of the things I like the most about your style is it's the essential stuff, and it's not, puffed up and really complicated. It's just like, hey, if you want to make a great video, this is how you do it. These are the minimum things you need to know, which is, totally resonates with me. That's how I like to do things too. And
yeah,
it's just great because, you can watch content on your channel without a lot of fluff. And it's just, yeah, really, really good work, man. You're a good teacher and a good dude. So
yeah, if people need like more in-depth stuff, a lot of times I just shoot them over to you or one of the other, great creators out there because you guys all make awesome stuff,
Yeah.
And pretty much anything you want to know, it's like if I don't know, like I'll point them to you or to, one of the other great people out there. What's great about this DaVinci Resolve creator community here, it's like I think we can all just like send people to whoever's got the right stuff, to kind of help them out. It's awesome. It's cool.
yeah. Speaking of the other DaVinci Resolve creators, if you guys don't know, we are doing a little event called ResolveCon. In about 3 weeks, we will be live from Oregon. I think you can still come out here if you can get your plane ticket and get a place to stay and everything. We still have a couple spots reserved for anybody who wants to come out here in person. So if you want to just like up and book a flight real quick, you can come hang out with us for a weekend. It's October 1st and 2nd. But the cool thing is that you don't even have to come out here if you don't want to. We're going to be streaming live here on my YouTube channel. And it's going to be a solid weekend of the best YouTube creators for DaVinci Resolve learning, like that I've met. Some of the coolest people that I've met. And we're talking about all things Resolve, from just the basics to visual effects, to audio, to editing, to workflow, to, color grading, mixing, all of that stuff. And it's really, really exciting. It's going to be a blast. So if you want to learn Resolve, this is a great way to do it. If you want to meet some really cool people, It's gonna be pretty sick. And the wonderful Jason Yadlovsky is gonna be here, hanging out with us and giving us some audio wisdom and just hanging out, being a general good guy. You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna try. Do my best. I'm gonna do my best. Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to that. You know, to hang out with all the other great creators that are coming and everybody that's gonna be there in person. If you're gonna be there, really looking forward to meeting some of you guys. It's gonna be awesome. I'm really excited about it. Yeah,
so great.
Fun.
So yeah, if you guys want more information on that, go to resolvecon.com. And you can get your tickets there. You can make sure to RSVP if you're planning on watching live, because we want to know if you're going to be there so we can plan some fancy things like, I don't know, maybe some giveaways of some awesome stuff. Hey, baby.
Nice.
It's going to be great.
Some stuff.
Yeah. So that's pretty exciting.
Nice.
But we have Jason here now. And so I believe that you've brought a couple of bits of wisdom to share with us in the audio world that I'm sure a lot of the audience would enjoy. So let's jump in.
All right. You want me just to get to tip number 1 here?
I guess so. I mean, I think even if it's not like a specific tip, I think what about, like, let's just start with this, like, advice for somebody who just has never cared about audio. It's always just been like, I'm shooting whatever, and however it sounds is fine. Like, how do you even get started caring about audio here?
Yeah. So, I mean, think about it. You're sitting there, you're looking on YouTube, right? You're trying to watch a video on whatever it might be. If you come to a video,
underwater cake baking.
Yeah. Underwater cake baking.
Yeah.
And it just sounds like you're underwater, right? You're not going to sit there and watch it. I mean, I think we've all been there where you get to a video, it doesn't sound good. It might look beautiful, but if you can't understand what they're saying, if there's static, if it just doesn't sound good, you're going to skip it, most likely. I mean, I think that's true for most people. And, you know, on the flip side of that, if the video maybe doesn't look so good, but your audio is like crisp, it's good, it's easy to understand, people are more likely to kind of sit through that video, even though it might not look as good as it could, but I can hear it good. If I can hear it good, then I'm going to get the information or entertainment or whatever it is, that value, I'm going to get that out of the video.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like one thing to think of is like, okay, I'm making a video, but I want people to see it. I mean, that's why we do it, right? So if it doesn't sound good, there's a good chance that right off the bat, people are going to skip it, not going to watch it. So you want to have at least audio that's decent. Doesn't have to be perfect, right? But it has to be good enough that somebody can sit through it and not notice things that are wrong, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, you know, when audio is great, nobody says anything, right? But as soon as your audio is bad, well, that's when people notice and they start saying something, you know?
Yes.
And I mean, I mix at my church on Sundays sometimes, and nobody says anything when it sounds great. But as soon as it sounds bad, people are calling you out.
So you call success when nobody says anything. You're like, oh yeah, dude. Great.
Which is bittersweet. You know, you want somebody to be like, dude, your mix sounded good. Your YouTube video, wow, there's some great audio in there. But it doesn't really happen. You know, it's people notice it when it's bad.
Yeah, that's one of those things. It's almost like good color correction, right? It's just like, yeah, it looks good. You know, I didn't even notice that you color corrected it. It's like, yeah, I did a great job. Same thing with like a lot of visual effects and stuff. It's just like, oh yeah, it looked fine. And it's like, well, I completely redid that background.
Right.
Thanks for thanking me.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and just, you know, something else to like think about if you're listening to, you know, your video and you're like, something sounds weird. You know, a lot of like audio work is trying to figure out what sounds bad, right? We're not trying to take what we have and make it better. We're trying to take what we have and get rid of the bad stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because that's going to generally make a bigger difference quicker than if you're trying to add things to your audio to make it better. Sometimes you need to remove things in order to make it sound better.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So
things to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's great. Well, why don't we jump into tip number 1 then? If somebody's gonna like get some good audio, what's the first thing?
So the first thing is you want to get it as good as you can in your camera, right? You got your camera here. So one thing is, I mean, if you can have a good microphone up here, you know, great. But you work with what you got, right? And one of the things that you want to do when you're recording is take a look at your audio level. So hopefully you guys can see this. So there we go. So you got your audio levels there. You want to set that to something that is good. Like on a lot of cameras, on mine here, it's got that -12. So you want your audio levels to be around that -12 dB, -10 dB, somewhere in that range is typically what I go for. And that's going to give you a good signal to work with. Because if your audio's, you know, really quiet when you record it, then you got to boost it up more. And, you know, the more you play with stuff, just like in video, you know, the more you try to do with it, sometimes it'll break down and the quality, you lose quality, you know. So you want to capture the best quality that you can when you're recording, whether it's, you know, on your phone, whether it's on your camera, whatever it might be. Do the best you can to set your levels right. Use a decent microphone if you can. I mean, we can't all do it, but whatever you got, you know, something decent if you can. Think about your environment. That's a huge one. You know, if you're in a place that's really echoey, can you go to another room? Can you go outside? Can you go somewhere where you're not going to have a lot of background noise going on that you have to try and fix later? Because it's always better to get it, you know, right in the camera if you can, than have to try and fix it later, you know. And I mean, we can't always do that. You know, sometimes you got a lot of background noise or something, you know, isn't working out right with your audio. But as you're filming and recording, you just do the best you can to set good levels in your camera, and then think about your environment and how you're recording your audio in that environment.
Yeah.
So that's really the biggest tip when you're getting started with audio. It starts way before you even get to resolve. You got to think about it when you're filming. Yeah,
man. I think, that's such an important thing that, and I think like people were saying in the chat, it's important with any kind of media, right? You got to start with a good source, because sometimes, especially like with audio and stuff, sometimes it just takes a few minutes to make it better. You know, like like nobody wants to take that extra, 10 minutes to go and, unplug the refrigerator for a minute and, like hang up a blanket on a C-stand next to you to kind of absorb some echo and stuff. But that little bit is going to make your mix and everything so much better later. And it's worth it because, can you get rid of echo and stuff? Yeah, a little bit. Can you, denoise some things? Sure. But it's going to sound worse. And it's going to take a lot of time in post to actually get it to look good. But you could just take 10 minutes on set, Yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't even have to be anything fancy. If you're in a room in your house that's echoey, literally, you could just take blankets, throw blankets on the floor if you have like wood floors, or you don't have to like go crazy hanging things up all over. Like back here, there's a, it's like sound blankets all the way around my studio here. So that makes a big difference. But you could throw pillows on the floor or whatever. Like there's a lot of just DIY kind of stuff that you could, do to help your environment a little bit. Obviously, if you're out and about, that's different. But, you just kind of see what you could do and make the best of what you got.
Yeah. I think one thing that I've learned that depends on your what's the word? This is why I edit my videos, because I always forget like a specific word, but it's fine. Your experience, that's what it is. It depends on like your experience and everything, shooting media and stuff. But I know having a mic as close as you can to your mouth, like for the most part, like, I mean, you don't want it really, really close, but like within a couple feet of the person speaking makes such a big difference, right? Because you can even have a pretty well treated room, and if your mic is across the room, like on top of your camera rather than on a boom pole or something, like that makes a huge difference. Even if you have the very best mic, if it's not placed well, that's a big thing.
Right. Yeah. Mic placement is huge, and I mean, obviously there's different microphone types. You can wear the lav mics. Like I've got a boom mic right up here. I mean, it's literally like my finger's on it right now. So it's just out of the frame. It's probably a foot away from my face, But yeah, it's important to have that mic as close as you can to, the source. That's one thing, I used to deal with too, mixing live music. It's like you want people to hold the microphone almost right on their mouth.
Yeah.
Because if they're holding it out here, you're gonna get extra stuff in there, extra noise. You're gonna have to edit it different, or tweak it different and things like that. But yeah, having it close to the source makes a huge difference. I mean, it can definitely help your voice sound richer and better. If you get closer to it, call it the proximity effect. If you're nice and close to the microphone, yeah, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, that's great tips. So make sure, I mean, with audio, just like anything, make sure you get the very best starting point you can get. But after that, so like, what's after that?
So next, you're going to bring it into Resolve, and we're going to start to listen to it. And you're going to want to like open your, your mixer, and we want to look at the meters so we can set the levels of our audio properly in Resolve, right? Because you do the best you can in camera, and we want to check that once we get it into Resolve and make sure it's in a good spot. So setting levels is super important. Before you start doing anything else, you want to make sure once you get into Resolve, you've got the level set, at a good spot. And generally, I mean, I'm shooting for, if we're just doing like dialogue audio, you're shooting for around -10 dB, give or take a little bit is all right. But that's kind of where you want your dialogue audio to be in Resolve. And you've got a bunch of different ways that you can adjust the levels. You got the little white line that appears on your clips that you can grab and move up and down. You can use the inspector and use the volume in the audio section of the inspector. You've got other ways using like dynamics and things that you can boost the volume of it a little bit. But you've got a lot of options on different ways to adjust the levels. And I mean, I don't know that one's better than the other. It kind of depends on, your situation, what you like, and that kind of stuff. But what I'll usually do is adjust the volume of the clip a little bit. I don't really adjust the faders too much in the mixer. I'll usually wait until I have all of my audio, on a video. Like I'll have my music, my sound effects, my dialogue, and then I'll use the faders at the end just to fine tune everything. But I'll kind of adjust the volumes of the clips, as I'm building my video to be where I want them to be. So adjusting levels, super important. You want to make sure they're set good when you get started working with your audio. Before you add anything else, set the levels good in Resolve. Hopefully you got them good in camera, but if not, you do the best you can to set them good in Resolve.
Yeah.
So that's the first step.
Yeah, I think that's great to outline, because I feel like sometimes, I mean, I know I've done this, but I've seen people, they throw their audio in and then they just like start reaching for filters, right? They start EQing or put on a compressor or whatever. And it's like, well, you can have, you kind of need to have a decent like gain, like an input,
Right.
So that's really cool. Do you so you said that you generally do that at the clip level?
Yeah. A lot of times. Because for example, when I film, a video for my YouTube channel here, it's generally one long take, right? So I'll bring that into Resolve and I'll set my overall level for the entire clip before I start to cut it up. Because for me and my setup, it's pretty consistent. So I can kind of set my levels when I first bring in my one long clip into Resolve. And then it's kind of good to go. And like for me, I find that when I set my microphone, it comes in a little bit quieter than, that -10 dB. So I'll generally boost it up using, the inspector there by like either 3 or 5 in the audio volume section there. And then that's usually good for my audio, because it's better to come in a little quiet than too hot too when you're recording anything, because you don't want to be peaking, because that's kind of you just blow it out and then you can't recover that. Whereas if it's a little bit quieter, there's a better chance you can boost it up so we can hear it, versus trying to recover something that's blown out.
Yeah,
like highlights in a video. That the information's not there, you can't pull it back.
Yep.
So
exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, but you could do it either way. Like when it comes to sound effects, if I'm throwing in little transition sound effects or something, those I'll do individually, because they're all going to be a little bit different. And then, it's similar with music, that you might download from like a royalty-free place or whatever. I'll dump that in and I can set it, but sometimes you got to, adjust it along the clip, depending on, whether you want it to duck under and things like that. But I find that like audio clips always come in way hot, they're always real loud. So drop those back. But yeah, for my dialogue, I can usually do it once for my situation, and then I'm good to go to move on.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Great advice. All right, so let's truck on. What's after that?
So after that, you want to listen to your audio. That's huge. Listening, yeah, you got to sit there, listen to yourself chat and talk it up. But you got to listen for the things that don't sound good, right? A lot of times with audio, you might think, well, like you just said before, I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to throw on this filter and that filter. But really what you want to do is a lot of times is remove things before you add anything. Because by removing things, you can remove things that don't sound good so that we've got a better, cleaner signal to then maybe apply something else to, right? Some kind of effect or something like that. So listening to your audio clips is not easy. It takes practice, and some people just can't hear the differences between audio adjustments or just things that don't sound good. I mean, a lot of times I'll put on a video, like for example, I just rendered out a video like 7 times yesterday because I was trying different audio settings. I'll try it on, my computer, might sound okay. Then I put it on my phone and I'm like, oh, no, I could just tell right off the bat, it's terrible. So just being able to pick out those things makes a big difference, in helping you kind of give yourself a roadmap of what do I need to fix so that my audio sounds better.
Yeah.
Right. For example, if it sounds muddy and it's like a little hard to understand, maybe there's too much, low end in there or too much like bass in there. So you can remove some of that and it's going to help the vocals sound a little bit better and not sound so muddy. At the same time, if the words aren't as clear or the audio doesn't sound as crisp as you want it to, you could boost the high end a little bit, above like 4K in your EQ. You give that a little boost and that's going to help just make things a little bit clearer. It's going to increase the clarity of the vocal a little bit.
Yeah.
So when you're listening to your audio and you're trying to find these things that don't sound good, the way you would fix that is to use your EQ, right? That's why the equalizer in Resolve is so powerful, because you can find those things that sound like junk, not good. And then you can grab that frequency, bring it down, and you're going to essentially cut that frequency to remove the audio that doesn't sound so good.
Yeah, man.
And there's
I love that.
Yeah, and there's key spots where, I mean, I find that audio always needs a little bit of help. Like in that 1,000 to 2,000 range, give or take a little bit. That's where a lot of your just normal people dialogue lives, right, on the EQ. So in my experience, a lot of times you're always going to find harsh frequencies or things that just make it sound not so great in that range, And if a woman's voice, it's going to be a little bit higher on the EQ. A man's voice is going to be a little bit lower. But in that range is a good place to start looking for, problem spots,
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's listening, but it takes a lot of practice too. Like knowing what to listen to and listen for is tough. And it's going to sound different if you listen on headphones versus if you listen on your phone versus if you listen on, monitor speakers or any kind of speakers versus if you're, for example, when I mix, live music, I can listen in headphones and mix from the board, but it's going to sound completely different than when I take off the headphones and you've got the room acoustics mixed in there.
Yeah.
So you kind of just have to, at least for YouTube here, it's like what I do is I'll edit it the way I think sounds good. And then I'll listen to it on my headphones. I'll, maybe upload the video, see how it sounds on the phone, because we know a lot of people watch on the phone. And then you just kind of find something that seems like it's pretty good for everything,
Yeah.
The best you can,
Yeah.
But and it takes practice. I actually found a YouTube channel. I forget what it was called. But it's like where this guy has got videos on how to train your ears to listen to stuff.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And
that
like,
is
he's
something I could definitely check out.
Yeah. I forget the name of the channel. But I was like, that's so cool. I'm like, I never thought about like training my ears more. Like it's like specific examples with, here's this sound. This is what it sounds like. And here's how it is in different situations or whatever. But even for me, I'm like, wow, this is great,
Man, yeah. Can you share that?
Yeah.
Can you find that video and share that with us? Because that'd be
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's because
So
I could definitely go for that because I'm one of those people that can't hear the difference half the time. Like, we've been talking about doing some audio training, and I'm a little nervous about it because I'm like, I don't know.
yeah.
Because
I feel like whenever I was gonna say whenever
just,
I make a video, oh no, go.
No, I'm not gonna go. I'm not backing down. No, I am backing down.
I was gonna say I always feel like that when I make audio videos. Like people are gonna be like, because you get people who can't hear it, or I mean, it doesn't translate as well across YouTube, as it does in headphones, or especially if you're on a phone or something. It doesn't translate it as well. But I'm always like, people are gonna think I'm a fraud here. I'm just, I'm just throwing out stuff for nothing.
Chances are, if you think people are thinking you're a fraud, it's because you're doing it right.
Yeah. Hopefully. I hope
if
so.
you're worried about it, chances are you're not a fraud. That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm one of those people that watch those videos, and it's like, yeah, check this out. Here's the EQ before and here's it after, and I'm like, it sounds exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. But your speakers and whether you got headphones or not, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
In being able to hear the differences, And I even not too long ago got studio monitor speakers over at my desk over there, and I started editing on those because I got tired of sitting with headphones on all the time. But there's a huge difference in the way that those sound and the way that these sound. You know, it's tough because I'll edit something, the way it sounds good on the monitor speakers, and then I put my headphones on. I'm like, ooh, nah. So it's tough. It's tough to hear the differences, and then whatever you're listening to it on is going to make it sound different one way or the other.
Yeah.
So it's challenging. It's got its challenges, right?
Yeah. Man, some good questions in chat, guys. We're going to be talking about those in just a few minutes here. We're just kind of gathering them and writing them down, and we'll do some questions here in a few minutes. But yeah. Well, so listen. Okay.
Yeah.
We got that.
Big one. Because if you can't hear what's wrong, how do you know what you're fixing, or how do you know what you're making better, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So
exactly.
So gotta listen. And it just takes time too, The more you listen to it, the more you'll start to hear things. You'd be like, oh, hey, that frequency, blah blah blah. I think I need to drop that down,
Mm-hmm.
So you got that. So then after you're listening, like I said, EQ is the way you're going to kind of fix those problem areas. So you would go through there, and I've got some videos on EQ on how to work with it. It seems complicated, but I tried to make it pretty simple in some of my videos. It doesn't have to be as hard. You don't have to know the ins and outs of everything. All you got to do is listen. Because you want to go by what sounds good too, right?
Yeah.
The numbers and the details sometimes don't matter as much as what it actually sounds like,
Mm-hmm.
So then you do that, you get rid of the things that don't sound good, and then the next thing that I like to look at is adding a little bit of compression in there. And compression is going to be found in your dynamics in Fairlight. And what compression does is it kind of reduces the dynamic range of your audio a little bit. So when we record our audio, right, you get a little excited, you get jazzed up. Like people tell me I'm, too excited or something in my videos sometimes. Like, hey, I like making videos. So what are you going to do? So sometimes it's loud, right? But then other times, if you record parts that are pretty quiet, right? So we've got this, dynamic range of our audio from loud parts to quiet parts. Well, compression kind of compresses the louder parts, and it allows you to make the quieter parts louder. So it kind of brings them down together. It's not going to be level because we don't want to do that, but it brings them a little bit closer together. So that way, when you're watching YouTube or think about watching TV, right? We don't want to sit here, I can't hear it, putting the volume up, putting the volume down, right? You don't want to ride your volume, right? You want it to be a good, consistent listening level for whoever's watching.
Yeah.
And dynamics and compression is going to help you do that and help you accomplish the goal of, can I hear it without having to ride my volume? Hear the quiet parts? Are the loud parts not knocking my socks off? Just kind of balancing it out. You can think about it like that way, balancing your audio a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's.
But if you overdo compression too, then that's bad, right? Anything that we do too much of isn't good either most of the time, right? It's same thing with color grading or anything else, right?
Too many gummy bears, all of that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
End up with a stomach ache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to have an audio stomach ache. Okay.
No. You'll have an earache, actually.
Yeah. So, okay. So what about some advice for like, okay, how do you know whether you're overdoing, your audio treatment or not?
Right. So again, it kind of goes back to listening to it partly. If you start to add things or do things or compress things and it doesn't sound good, you're overdoing it, right? We can watch our meters and stuff, and some of the different little meters, like in the dynamics. There's a meter when things are getting compressed, right? If that meter's shooting way down and you're filling the meter, well, that's probably too much.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the stuff, like you're going to be able, I want to say you're going to be able to hear it, but it's tricky. Like sometimes if you kind of just, you can try where you might take something, apply it, and then dial it up more, like increase whatever it is. Like for example, if it's compression, crank it way up until, I think at some point you're going to notice it doesn't sound good. Then dial it back until like you maybe kind of can't really notice it too much. Because a lot of times with the audio, like we want to be subtle, right? You don't want it to be this drastic change where it just sounds odd, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want it to be unnoticeable, right? You want people to not say anything, essentially.
Yeah.
Like we talked about earlier, right?
Yep.
Nobody's saying nothing. You're doing a good job.
No news is good news.
That's right.
Yeah.
So but listening to it's like the big part of it. There's not something that's going to be like, oh, hey, you're doing it too much,
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily, not all the time. Sometimes, yeah, if your audio's peaking out after you did something, well, that's too much. You got to back it down, But yeah, listening, got to listen.
Yes. So important. Ugh.
Yeah.
That's like it's like if you're cooking, you got to taste what you're cooking, right? Get a spoon and taste it, Got to do that every once in a while.
Little something extra in there, or is it good, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then once you kind of have, EQ, you took away the stuff that don't sound good. You worked with a little bit of compression to bring down your dynamic range a little bit. Maybe if you had background noise, you'd probably take care of it by this point. You could do that in a variety of ways. I'm debating if I want to talk about that or not. You want to talk about background noise reduction? I know people always get background noise, right?
Yeah.
I'll just say that the built-in tools in Resolve are not great. Like the noise reduction effect there. It's lacking, I think. Yeah, it could be a whole lot better. But what I like to use is like a gate or an expander. So what those are going to do is you're going to say, okay, at, whatever, 35 dB, anything that's below that, I want to make it quieter, or I want to just cut that signal off so we don't hear it.
Yeah.
So typically that's what I'll do. I'll go to a gate or an expander versus using, the built-in noise reduction in Resolve, because I never really had good results with it. Not that it doesn't work, but I don't get it to work too good.
Sure.
But I don't know if maybe some people out there have seen the little video that I did on the Clarity VX from Waves, that plugin.
Mm-hmm.
That thing's ridiculous. It's like a magic wand for background noise in your audio. It's pretty impressive. So something like that is more what I would use, like a third-party plugin, to deal with background noise and that kind of stuff. So you take care of that. But then once you kind of get all the problems taken care of, then you can start to thinking about, well, what can I do to make it better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do I even need to do anything? Maybe you don't need to do anything, but if you did want to do something, what I typically do is I'll maybe add a multi-band compressor so we can compress certain frequency ranges a little bit and continue to like refine it and balance it out and kind of give you, more of the sound or the style of the sound that you want. So typically I'll do that with the multi-band compressor, and then I might throw like a de-esser on there just to get rid of those harsh S sounds.
Yeah.
Right. And that'll just help clean it up a little bit. You don't need a lot of, that effect, just a little bit to kind of take off the edge. Because that kind of drives me nuts if you're listening to anything and it's just those S's are like, they just jump out at me all the time. So
yeah.
So I try to take care of that. And if you wanted to add any effects like, reverb or delay or like any of the other cool stuff that's there in Resolve, that this would be the time that you might do that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I just thought of to kind of keep in mind is in Resolve, in Fairlight, you've got the ability to change like the order that these things are applied between your EQ, your dynamics, and your effects. So what that affects is really the signal or the path of your audio, right? So your audio starting here, where are we going next, right? Do I want to go to effects next? Do I want to go to dynamics next? What order do we want the audio to be routed, through these different things that we're doing? And you've got different options there, and it depends on, what you're looking for. But for me, I like to take my audio signal, then I like to go into the EQ, then I like to go down to the dynamics, and then I like to go into the effects. So, I mean, that might vary depending on what you're doing with your audio, the type of videos you have. I mean, are you trying to do, a music video with people singing and stuff like that? Maybe you want to do it a little different. But for dialogue and like what I do here on YouTube, it's like I want my clean audio signal, then I'm going to fix up anything using the EQ that I need to. And then I'll, work with the dynamics and get into effects after that so that everything's good. I got nice clean audio going into any effects that I might want to use.
Yeah.
But that's something to keep in mind is that it's a cool little tool. And if you set up your audio, adjust particular settings between those three things, and then you change that one order option to one of the different orders, it's going to sound different.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be pretty noticeable, So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, order operations is so important. I mean, with anything with media, but yeah, especially with audio. But yeah, I mean, that's especially a big thing. I mean, with color correction, with visual effects, all of that is like there's a certain order that's really good to use there, and it generally goes from big things, starting with clean things, into the little details down the line. But would you say that's true for audio as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think I think that's the same idea. Yep.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, hey man, thank you for those tips and kind of walking us through that. We have quite a few questions if you want to dive in for a few minutes here.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so okay, so Ant Banks asks, I'm just getting started doing videos, especially extremely novice to this. I'm currently only recording videos with my phone. My question is, what settings are best to remove your breathing, or what affordable mic helps with removing the breathing sound?
Okay, so when it comes to that noise, the breathing noise, you're taking breaths between when you're speaking. What I would try to do is use, in the dynamics, use either the gate or the expander. Because what that's going to do is in those spaces between your speaking, so if you see your waveform and you got the space, when you're taking a breath, the gate and the expander are going to drop down the level of like your breath, essentially. They're going to drop down the audio level in that area. And you can adjust it to happen quickly or slowly, depending on whatever you want. But a gate is really going to help with that. So, for example, if I'm recording on my phone and say there's, a little bit of breeze going on, and I'm not saying anything, I'm just filming, but I want it to be quiet. Well, I can set a gate in the dynamics that says, okay, at, 30 dB, I've just got wind noise below that. I want to take that out. I'm going to set my gate at 30 dB, and then it's going to drop the audio signal down, so it's going to essentially mute it. It's kind of like muting it. So the gate or the expander is where I would start to try and remove the breaths or minimize, that noise in between where you're actually speaking.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff, like there are, third-party VST plugins and stuff that are like specific, like a deep breath or whatever it's called, where they'll specifically target, and some of those do a really good job too at taking care of specific problems. So, but that's where I'd start with. I'd just go in dynamics and a gate or an expander. Yeah.
I would agree. I think for a lot of things I do, I mean, I cut out the breaths generally,
Right.
A lot of the stuff that I'm doing, especially for tutorials and stuff, is like almost like a radio edit, right? Where there's just like any breath or anything is cut out,
Right.
And so that's always an option too, is just cutting that stuff out, but it depends on what
you're doing. I
you're
do that
doing.
a lot as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This one is from Luke Brown Knoxville. It says, what is the best audio gear sub $100?
Best audio gear under $100. Well, I guess it depends what kind of audio gear. Are you looking for something to go on your camera? Are you looking for a lav mic? What's your setup, I guess? You know, are you plugging into a DSLR? Are you looking to hook into a phone? Kind of snowballs, you know. It does. It's hard to give one answer. But I can tell you that you can get things like a lav mic for like $20, $30, $15. Like, they're not great, but it might be better than, you know,
better
what
than
you've
your
got. For example,
audio.
If I'm trying to film with my GoPro, right, and the audio on here is like, not so good. Well, what if I can just plug in a lav mic that, you know, hooks on my shirt, even if I'm, you know, filming like this? It might be a better way to get audio from my GoPro to be able to edit in Resolve. It kind of really depends on your setup, you know. There's great microphones for all kinds of budgets. You know, are you just hooking in your computer, USB?
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, it's a hard question.
You know what I'd do? I'd Google it and I'd go to YouTube and see what's the best mic under $100 for my blah 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 setup, whatever setup that you have.
Yes. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Good.
Sorry, I couldn't be a little more help on that one.
No worries. That's that's good. Okay. So Jim Robinson says, I see lots of frequency sweeping with EQ. How do you know if you're actually finding a bad frequency in the room or the speakers and making it sound weird for everyone else? Do you have an EQ on your system?
Right. So for me, when I'm recording, I don't have any EQ, you know, when I'm recording. But basically sweeping the EQ is what's going to allow you to find some of those frequencies that don't sound good, right? So as you're sweeping around the EQ, you're going to know it when you hear it. It's going to hurt your ears. It's going to make like an odd, you know, thing in your headphones or in your speakers. A lot of times if I'm really trying to find specific things that I think are there that might, you know, not sound good, that I want to remove specific frequencies, I'm going to use headphones because that's going to give me the best, like, reference. You know, the monitors that I have, they're not super high end or anything like that. So I'll use my headphones because these are pretty good in helping me pick out those areas that need some help. But the point of sweeping your EQ is as you raise your point up and you sweep it across, you're going to find parts that sound worse than other parts, right? And you can narrow down the part that sounds the worst to usually like a specific range, you know? But again, like that kind of thing, like, you're going to know it when you hear it, or you're going to know it when you hear it. You're going to hear it when you know it. You know what I mean? You're going to know it when you hear it. And it's going to sound weird. It's going to sound bad. It's going to sound a lot worse than the other parts. So it's hard to describe. I don't know exactly how it is, but if you watch my EQ video, you'll hear some of those bad frequencies and bad spots in there. So
there you go.
Check that out.
Okay, so this one I thought was interesting. Control Defeat says, I'm having a hard time using control points in Fairlight, new to the program, and I can get voices in gaming clips to lower. So I assume that's talking about like there's a like one track with there's louder voices, and then you have kind of the background noise or the game noise, and it's all kind of in one track, and automating that. Like, how would you go about that?
So I've never worked with a clip like that, but thinking about it having, you know, your game audio and your dialogue audio all smashed together, I would probably try and work with dynamics a little bit to kind of see if I can like level it out. Like, I don't know if your voice is really loud or is the background stuff really loud. I'm not really sure, you know, the situation there. But I would try and level out the audio. I don't know if you're trying to like automate the whole thing and raise and lower your volume in different parts.
I mean, it kind of sounds like there's one track, and then the dialogue is really loud, you know, and it's like way louder, and so like bringing that dialogue down, you know.
Yeah. So I would do compression on that. You know, if it's your dialogue's a lot louder than say your gameplay or whatever, compression is going to help you bring down those loud parts. And maybe you need to bring up like the gameplay stuff. Maybe you don't. Maybe it's fine where it is, and you can just add some compression on top of it. You could also try like a multi-band compressor on that to find the dialogue. So if you set a multi-band compressor, for example, between 800 hertz and 2.5K, and then compress that down, that's where your vocal dialogue is going to live for the most part. I mean, obviously it's all across the frequency range. That might help a little bit because you can compress just certain parts of the frequency range. But I guess it kind of depends too on what the game stuff sounds like.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could be tricky. I think something like that. It's like I'd have to just kind of play with it and see what we could do with it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the first thing I'd try is try compression and see if it gets you there, before you go in and automate each one. Just because, I mean, if you can fix it with compression, that'd be great. If you're just wanting to bring down the voices,
right,
that might work.
Yeah.
That might work great. And maybe you're not that picky if the game audio gets a little compressed. Like maybe it's fine.
Yeah. The other thing to do is, I don't know if you've got the ability to change any settings, on your microphone when you're actually recording your initial recording there. Maybe you can adjust the volume on it. Maybe you've got a gain dial on your microphone. I don't know, maybe you could adjust it in however you're recording it, adjust it in the software or on your computer or something like that. And just kind of do some tests, get it balanced out to where you might not have to do too much with it, and just start there. Like we talked about, getting a good clean audio track in this case, initially could go a long way, and might be worth just testing it out, trying to see what you could do.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So, okay, this is a good question. I don't know how to say your name. Laurent, dear, I'm not even going to try it. Coming from Premiere, where can I do a cool 2-mouse click audio enhancer by adding the effect called multiband compressor with the internet delivery preset? Is there something similar in Resolve? Are you familiar with that, Jason?
I am not. I've never used Premiere, actually.
Yeah,
I found you in Davinci Resolve before I got to Premiere and paying for it.
Premiere and Audition have just a really nice multiband compressor. And there's a really nice preset that, I don't know, I used all the time, and I feel like a lot of people used, just called Internet Delivery. And it just made things sound really nice, But it was basically a multiband compressor with certain settings, with makeup, So is there something similar like that in Fairlight?
The only thing that comes to mind is there's an effect called... I think it's called dialogue something. I'm drawing a blank on what it's called, but it's basically like a strip of a de-esser, a compressor, a couple other effects in there. That's like you apply it once, and then it only has like very minor adjustments you can make. Dialogue processor, I think that's what it's called.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So like you can just make a couple changes, or I think it's got like a male preset and a female preset where it'll set everything for you. You could give that a try. That's probably the quickest way that you could just apply the effect, click male or female, and then see how it does. And there's, like I said, there's a couple different things that it does in there. Might be worth a shot to try that. I'm not, like I said, not too familiar with the other multiband compressor you talked about. But that's probably the quickest or closest to a one-click kind of option thing to do.
I think
Fairlight, anyway.
The closest thing I found is just the dynamics panel. I mean, it's a couple more clicks, and I think there are presets which they have now, and so that's like the closest thing I've found. It's not quite the same, but I actually, when I first switched over to Resolve, I opened up that the dynamics, and I just literally copied over like each thing from the internet delivery preset, like all of the little things, which I'm sure doesn't really translate perfectly, but it made me feel good, and it sounded pretty good. So
that's it. As long as it sounds good to you.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I would check check out the what was the name of the plugin you were talking about?
I believe it's called the dialogue processor.
Dialogue processor. Yeah.
I think if you went to the mixer and then clicked on the effects, I think it's under like channel at the top.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Try that. Try that.
Yeah.
And the dynamics panel for sure. Okay. Zizo asks, would it sound off having lav mics for a short film versus a shotgun cine mic?
I don't know that it would sound off. I mean, if you got a shotgun mic, you got to have a guy booming it up there with his pole and stuff. Like, I would just probably use whatever works for your situation. I mean, if you have the lav mics and you can do that, it's put it on the talent and then, you know, again, set your level as good as you can in the lav mics themselves. You know, use good ones if you can. Obviously, if you use cheap microphones of any kind, whether it's lavs or whatever, the quality's not going to be as good. But it depends. If you have people that run around with a boom mic for all your, you know, your scenes and stuff, sure, do it. If not, I would do the lav mic. I mean, it could go either way. It's just you got to work with what you got, you know.
Yep.
So it could go either way.
Yeah, I don't think it would sound. I don't think it's unheard of to do that. I'm sure they do that on quite a bit of things. I mean, we've done that on our short films, and you know, oftentimes we'll record multiple things. You know, we'll have a lav, and then we'll also boom it. You know, and we can kind of mix between whichever one sounds better, depending on, you know, if there's wind or if there's, you know, noise, or sometimes it's just a comparison of like, oh, this one sounds way better, we're just going to use that one, you know.
Yeah. I mean, most of the time, you know, with your boom mics, you're not going to pick up as much extra noise. You know, a lav mic is just it's going to pick up, you know, 360 around the lav mic for the most part. Whereas if you got a boom mic like what I got up here or whatever, it's more directional, so you can just pick up more of what you want, and it kind of eliminates more stuff that's, you know, around the microphone. Like this one that's on this camera here, you know, it's pretty directional, so it's mainly picking up here, not so much, you know, around the back. I mean, it still gets it, but versus, you know, a lav is gonna just pick up a lot more of the ambient noise and stuff. So
exactly. All right, I think we got time for maybe one more, and so I'm just gonna pick one. Right. I like this one. So Morgan Welburn asks, I'm working on my second short film, comedy horror, and I'm doing sound myself. Any helpful tips? I've used Audacity for noise removal and Deroomer 2 to remove echo, but the sound is still off.
All right, so since you're using the noise removal stuff there, sounds like there's a background noise issue. I would try the Clarity VX plugin from Waves. That's by far the best background noise removal plugin that I've seen, and that I've used so far. It's way better than any of the tools in Resolve. It does a really good job. I mean, I tested it out in front of construction equipment, in front of my fan, riding my scooter with a GoPro with the wind. I mean, it did a really good job at removing the background noise. It's like some magic going on there. So if you've got a lot of background noise and you're having trouble getting rid of it and getting clean dialogue through it, I would try that. The only thing is, if you're on a Mac, it doesn't run natively on a Mac yet. You have to run Resolve in Rosetta. Although if you're using Audacity, I think it'll go right into that too, no problem. So you could use it there too, because it's just like a, you know, VST plugin or whatever. But if you are on a Mac and you want to use it in Resolve, you could also try another plugin. It's called the NS1 noise remover plugin. It works a little bit differently, but it still does a really good job. And that's also from Waves. I'm gonna make a video about that pretty soon.
Nice.
But some of the aftermarket, you know, plugins seem to do a better job with that background noise removal. And just, I don't know, the built-in stuff in Resolve, it just, for background noise removal, it's like,
Yeah.
But so hopefully they'll tune that up. But so that's what I would try. And you can download trials of like all that stuff and give it a shot. You know, you don't have to go buy it. Give it a shot, see if it works, you know. But yeah, that's probably what I would do. That's probably what I would do.
Great. Well, thank you, man. Hey,
awesome.
Jason, thank you for hanging out with us today. This has been really cool. Anybody who wants to learn more audio and more stuff about Resolve, I mean, man, make sure you're subscribed to Jason. He has a great channel. He's a great dude. And if you want more, well, how about you just show up to ResolveCon in a couple weeks, because Jason's going to be there, and along with a bunch of other YouTube creators that are amazing and very talented teachers, some of the best that we've found, and we're very, very excited to be hosting that with Ground Control here. And yeah, very, very excited to have you, man. So thank you for being here with us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge. Guys, make sure to go and subscribe to Jason.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Casey, and looking forward to seeing you guys in a couple weeks. It's going to be awesome. Really, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right. Awesome. Well, we're going to sign off. Thank you, everybody in the chat, and I will see you later. Bye.
All right. Bye.